My new work has been released. Welcome everyone to read my work in tomato novel. I hope everyone can enjoy it. Your attention is the driving force behind my writing, and I will strive to tell every story well. Chapter 1. Why don't you believe me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a small apartment in the South China Sea, there is a man lying on an old-fashioned wooden bed on the 7th floor, with a lazy face. Suddenly, the door was knocked on, and a young man with short hair outside had a mischievous smile on his face. The man impatiently got out of bed and was left speechless by his good friend when he opened the door. I saw the short-haired young man with a sacred and righteous expression ask, "May I ask if you lost a gold key, a wooden key, or a silver key, my friend?" The man opened his eyes and saw his face of being beaten. He grabbed the key from the young man's hand, turned around, and walked back to the room without even looking at him. The young man saw that the man had this attitude, quickly changed into a dog-legged appearance, and followed him into the door. As soon as he entered the room, he chattered incessantly and asked, "Mu Heng, are you okay? Why did I meet your uncle once? I even smashed the bar and lost my car key." Mu Heng joked, "So what if I smashed it? Anyway, the bar belongs to you." After hearing him say that, the short-haired man looked bitter and said, "I'm just a bar owner. Why did you treat me like this? Your expenses at the bar yesterday were not small, so I'll reimburse you." Mu Heng immediately pulled down his face and said, "Are you itching?" The short-haired man knew he was a person who loved money and was a complete iron rooster. He said, "Yesterday's expenses weren't really much, so let me help you pay for them, someone as generous as me. After all, I am so grand." Although the short-haired man still deserved some beating, he decided not to hit him because he paid for his expenses last night. "Xiao, it's time to get down to business." Speaking of business, Xiao put away his smiling face and became somewhat serious. At this moment, about 500 meters away from this room, a middle-aged man who looked a bit old was looking at the two people in the room with a telescope. He saw them enter the bedroom and pull the curtains. He let out a soft sigh. One of the neat black-clothed people standing in the back row spoke up and asked, "Boss, do you need to tell the young master?" "No, he will know one day. Even if he tells him, he won't believe it." Then he turned around and walked out of the room. I was puzzled in my heart why he never wanted to believe me. In the room, Mu Heng and his good friend were listening to the conversation 500 meters away on the phone. Yes, he never wanted to believe his uncle. When he heard these words, his face remained expressionless, and it was obvious that he did not believe them. He still felt that these words were meant for him to hear. It was because he discovered that after smashing the bar yesterday, he instructed Xiao to install the monitor on his uncle's hand. Indeed, his uncle noticed his movements, but he wanted to take this opportunity to let his nephew hear the truth. I don't expect his nephew to see him so badly. They took off their headphones and Xiao suggested going to his hotel to relax and unwind. However, don't smash anything anymore. In the luxurious private room of the Kyoto Grand Hotel, Mu Heng and Xiao Jing sat on leather sofas, each holding a tall glass. The blood-red wine in the transparent tall glass spun like blood under their shaking, and the red and green lights in the private room shone on Mu Heng's body. Xiao Kan looked at the gloomy atmosphere and said, "Heng, let me take you to get to know people in the bar. If you have something to do, you can find people in the bar." Seeing that Mu Heng was not moved, he laughed and pulled him out of the private room. He went to the bar and introduced himself to a young bartender with yellow hair, saying, "This is Mu Heng's brother. This is Xiaoyu, a bartender who dropped out of high school to work and couldn't find a job. He came to the bar to get drunk. After getting drunk, we were about to make a sample, and no one could persuade him to call me. He confided in me about the difficulties. I want the bar to be short of a bartender, so he can come to work tomorrow and learn how to mix from an old bartender. I didn't expect this guy to be quite talented, he learned it in just 2 days." Chapter 2. Mysterious People. You are listening at novel full.audio. Then, he arrived at the most remote room on the top floor of the bar and opened the door, where several wealthy children were drinking and indulging in extravagance. Hearing the sound of the door opening, everyone turned their gaze towards it. This private room looks no different from a regular one on the outside, but inside the door it appears incredibly luxurious, even more so than the VIP room they initially stayed in. As soon as they entered, those wealthy children flattered and surrounded them. After introducing these wealthy children to me, Xiao introduced me to them and said, "This is our big boss behind the scenes, Mu Heng." They laughed even more obsequiously, occasionally introducing me to their younger sisters and saying they would bring them out to meet each other someday. I replied with my usual smile on my face. This time I came to let Zhao's subordinates know my big boss. Unexpectedly, they introduced female family members one by one. It seems that everyone wants to send their sisters to me. After the party, I returned to the seaside apartment and changed into comfortable casual clothes. Now it's time for dinner. I arrived alone at the most prosperous night market in the entire South China Sea, walked to a street vendor, bought a few skewers and 2 bottles of beer, and sat on a chair waiting. During the waiting process, he heard several people at the table next to him say that they had heard that a mysterious organization in the South China Sea had taken action. Another person agreed and said, yes, Master Mu was a towering figure back then. Even though he was just a small employee in Master Mu's mysterious organization, he was one of the top figures here. That's right, Mu Heng was in great glory in the South China Sea 3 years ago, but his parents had a car accident 3 years ago. When he fell silent, he always believed that his parents' death was not an accident, so he immediately summoned the entire organization to investigate this matter. Although those wealthy children may seem carefree, they are still quite efficient in getting things done. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the southwest, and I immediately ran towards that direction. Because he just received news from his subordinates that there is a mysterious person abroad who has never failed to collect money and handle matters, and no one knows his gender. I came here this time to ask him to help investigate the incident 3 years ago. The reason why there is a lot of hostility towards my uncle is because 3 years ago, my subordinates saw a letter at my uncle's house that said they wanted to murder his parents, and also saw a servant about to burn this piece of paper. At the scene of the incident, I saw a burnt Lamborghini and a black-clad girl about to leave, still carrying blood. Obviously, it's a killer. She saw me and immediately rushed towards me, wanting to kill someone and silence me. I have also fought dozens of well-trained assassins with bare hands before, and I am more than enough to deal with a little girl. Thinking that she had already arrived in front of me with one leg pounding at my head, she seemed to be a practitioner. I immediately dodged and a special fragrance wafted into my nose. I couldn't help but take a few more breaths. After a few moves with her, I realized that her strength was on par with mine. She took advantage of my daze and took out a small knife from her waist to stab at my vital point. I dodged the attack on my side. Finally, she caught a gap and wanted to take the opportunity to escape. My hand grabbed her leg, and she kicked my hand away with her other leg, successfully escaping, but a business card fell from her waist. There is a photo above, which shows the seductive face of the woman just now, as well as some news about the murder this time. My intuition tells me that she is the mysterious person I am looking for. After losing consciousness for a while, I called Xiaorang to find out who was burned to death in the car and who wanted to kill the person inside. Xiao Dao said, "Okay, I'll have someone investigate." Me. "No, you can go investigate. The other person may be the mysterious person I've been looking for, so be careful not to reveal her whereabouts." More than 10 days have passed, but there is still no clue, not even Xiao can check. Chapter 3. Auction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts and I frowned slightly, saying, "Please come in." The butler walked in respectfully and said, "Young master, the old man of the Mo family has sent an invitation for his 80th birthday, inviting him to attend tomorrow night." Have you taken a look? After thinking about it, I can't find anything at the moment, so I'll go relax and unwind. Driving to the apartment and taking a hot shower, Xiaofa sent a message saying, the mysterious person from that night has news. They said they will attend Mr. Mo's birthday banquet and have saved his life. They happen to meet her tomorrow night. Silent all night. Early in the morning, I woke up and changed into a dark brown suit. I came to Yundao Auction House to prepare a birthday gift for Mr. Mo. Yundao Auction House is one of the top auction houses in the entire Nanhai city, and all the auction items are rare treasures. I came today not only to find a birthday gift for Mr. Mo, but also to take pictures of my mother's jade bracelet. After my parents died, the jade bracelet that my mother had been with her disappeared, and there has been no news until 2 months ago when Yundao Auction released a message that the Fengshan jade bracelet, which had been auctioned once, will be auctioned again. When my parents got married, my father bought this jade bracelet at a high price and gave it to my mother. I must buy back my mother's belongings. The decoration of the auction house is very magnificent, and the pure silver floor embedded on the ground looks very luxurious. The auction house has already gathered many wealthy merchants. They were chatting happily when suddenly a crisp female voice rang out. The Cloud Road auction is starting now. Everyone's attention was drawn to it. I didn't have any interest in the auction items in front of me, and I was waiting for them all boring. The host suddenly said, "Next, it's the last 2 auction items that come to an end." I immediately opened my eyes, and yes, the next item to be auctioned off is the Fengshan jade bracelet, which belongs to my mother. Another auction item he wants to give to Mr. Mo as a birthday gift. The host introduced a lot of nonsense before saying, first, the starting price is 7 million yuan, and each additional price must not be less than 100,000 yuan. I shouted directly, 10 million yuan. Everyone present took a deep breath. Just as people were stunned for a moment, a voice with a smile came. 15 million. Very good, I called Xiao and said, Xiao is preparing to rob. This sentence happened to be heard by the son of the mayor sitting next to him who just quoted a price. The son of the mayor is called Jiha. When I was a child, I often beat him up and made his face blue and swollen. He went home with a runny nose and tears to complain to his mayor's father, but every time he was scolded by his father, saying that if you can't beat him, don't provoke him. So he became resentful towards me and opposed me everywhere, even though he couldn't please me every time. Our 2 families are close friends. In my father's generation, the 2 families got along very well, but in our generation, they don't get along as well. If I quote again, he won't dare to speak up, and I have also taken the last 2 items. At night, I drove Maybach to the Mo family's old house, which was unusually lively inside. As soon as I entered the door, I saw Mr. Mo sitting in the main seat, his eyes squinting with a smile. As soon as I appeared at the door, the old man noticed me and waved with a smile, gesturing for me to come over. I walked up to the main seat and asked with a smile, "Old man, what makes you laugh so happily?" The old man also smiled and said, "It's nothing, it's just that you and Ching Xian have come to see me, I'm just too happy." The old man of the Mo family has liked me since he was young, and whenever he has something to do, he asks me to go and see him. Chapter 4. Banquets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In recent years, I have rarely come to see him due to my parents. But who is this Ching Xian? I have only heard that a year ago, the old man went out to a banquet and had someone with ulterior motives drugged him. He was saved by a young girl and sent back to the Mo family, still taking care of the old man. The old man has always regarded her as his granddaughter, and every time I come to visit him, he always mentions her. The old man asked her why she wanted to save him, and her answer was very surprising, saying it was because the old man looked like her grandfather. I believe this Ching Xian must be the girl who saved the old man. My eyes also fell behind the old man, looking at a pair of clear eyes, and then I saw a face that charmed all creatures just like the woman killer that night. I was taken aback and looked at this face motionless. There was a hint of shock in the eyes of the girl across from me, and she should have recognized me. The old man smiled happily and introduced me to the girl across from him. This was my goddaughter, is the girl I often talk about who saved me, Ching Xian. Her name turned out to be Ching Xian. The old man talked a lot to us, and only when the banquet started did he reluctantly welcome the guests. We were arranged to a private room to say we knew each other. We went to the room and ordered some food, each silently eating the food in front of us. After a long time, I finally couldn't help but probe, "What is your profession?" She said calmly, "Why are you checking me?" As soon as she said this, I immediately understood that she was indeed that mysterious person. "Hello Ching Xian, it's nice to meet you. We don't have any hostility towards you, we just ask for something," I said respectfully. After speaking, he reached out his hand to shake hands with the other person. She expressionlessly extended her hand and clasped it with mine. The soft touch made me unable to help but be stunned. She looked at me for a long time and didn't let go of my hand, as if she wanted to see what I wanted to do. I was stunned for a long time, and it wasn't until the waiter knocked on the door and came in to deliver the meal that I regained my senses. Looking at the small hand in his hand, the old man's face suddenly turned red and he quickly withdrew his hand to return to his seat. But Ching Xian thanked the waiter as if nothing had happened, and after the waiter left the private room, she looked at me and asked, "What can I help with?" I then described in detail the events before and after my parents had an accident. I didn't expect the answer she told me to be like this. It is said that the culprit back then was not my uncle, but my other two uncles. The other two uncles had been staring at my parents' property and designed to kill them, and even invited her to change the facts. He even blamed his uncle, took away some of his property, and the whole family went far away. He also blamed his uncle. After listening, I was so angry that my relaxed hand slowly tightened the tableware on it, which had deformed. But the thought of the person across from me now not knowing whether they are enemies or friends, and not exposing my emotions to others, my face softened in an instant. Today, the people attending the old man's birthday banquet were all wealthy, but I actually saw my college roommate Shuchi in the crowd. It is said that he is a roommate, but in fact, he is just a trash that picks up cheap goods that others don't want to show off. I heard that he was taken care of by a wealthy woman after coming out of college. It's not surprising to be here now, but I didn't expect to climb such a high branch that even Mr. Mo's banquet could come in. The old man led a group of people into this private room, and in an instant, the room became quiet. My eyebrows furrowed gently. The old man saw that Ching Xian and I were sitting so far away, so he drove me to sit next to Ching Xian and moved my chair towards him. Feeling the cold air around me, I calmly moved back to my original position. Chapter 5. Riot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as he sat down, Su Chi began to show off because his wealthy woman still had a high status, so he sat next to me. He pretended to be a good big brother, and he foolishly thought that I was still the low-key good student from back then. "Xiao Mu, how have you been these past few years?" he said with a strange tone. Before I could answer, he came back to himself and said, "If you have any difficulties, come find me. I will definitely not die without help." Then he babbled on a bunch of past events. Mr. Mo didn't say anything, probably to see how I would respond. I patiently waited for this silly Luan to finish speaking before gracefully wiping my hands with a leisurely dining towel. I looked up at Shuchi and said, "Was it you barking a dog just now?" "It was too noisy," I asked calmly. His face turned gloomy for a moment, and then he regained his composure and said, "It's okay. If you have any difficulties, come to me. Don't be angry and scold me." Although I say it this way, I have lost my confidence when speaking. With a sudden bang, Xiao appeared at the door with a group of people in black. With this sound, everyone in the private room looked at the door in confusion. The people in black shouted loudly, and Su Qi owed us 200,000 yuan. For us wealthy people, 200,000 yuan is a small amount that is not worth mentioning. If we have to borrow high-interest loans even for a small amount of 200,000 yuan, we are just fake billionaires without money to pretend to be wealthy. It would be too embarrassing. As soon as they entered, they clamored for Su Qi to repay the money. Su Qi's face turned pale as he walked towards Xiaohe, the man in black. They hid far away as if they had seen the plague god. Far away from Shuqi, he said, "You are Shuqi. You knelt before us 2 days ago and begged us to be tolerant for a few days. Today, when you run to such a high-end place to consume, don't come out and pretend if you don't have money. You come out and pretend to force you to repay the money. Tomorrow, at most tomorrow, if you don't repay the money, sell your house." After finishing speaking, she turned around and was about to leave when suddenly she saw me. Zhao's eyes lit up and she suddenly turned back. Su Qi thought I also owed them money, and his face improved a bit. He was about to see my non-existent joke. Xiao called me with a flattering expression, "Boss, why didn't you disturb me here just now?" Su Qi's face turned white instantly. He thought he could finally see Mu Heng's joke, but he didn't expect his creditor to call him Mu Heng's boss. Most importantly, just now he looked like a big brother and asked Mu Heng to come to him if he had any difficulties. The person who is looking for him to repay the money now is Mu Heng's younger brother, and he has lost face at home. He quickly found an excuse to leave here. I didn't expect Shuqi to borrow high-interest loans and not repay the money. Introducing Xiao to the old man, Xiao rudely instructed his subordinates to replace the things that Su Qi had just used. He then joked with the old man, "Mr. Mo, how old are you?" The old man said, "Today is my 80th birthday." Xiao smiled and said, "I thought you were only in your 60s. I didn't expect you to look so young." Make the old man burst into laughter. In no time, Xiao noticed Cheng Xian sitting next to me and smiled, saying, "Hello, sister.in.law. I am Mu Heng's brother, Morong Xiao." I was confused by Zhao's action and quickly explained, "Don't listen to him talk nonsense. He likes to joke, don't mind." She said coldly, I can see it." I was very embarrassed. I stepped on Xiao and a scream sounded from beside me. After calling, he asked me why I stepped on him. Am I wrong? You are a perfect match. I glared at Xiao with a hatred for not turning iron into steel. What's even more unexpected is that even the old man agreed, Xiao is right, they do look quite compatible. I almost vomited blood upon hearing this. Next, the banquet will be held according to the procedure until early morning. Chapter 6. Apology. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the banquet, I drove back to the apartment. I'm really exhausted today. Thinking about the facts that Cheng Xian told me, I couldn't help feeling guilty. I have been misunderstanding my uncle for years. Thinking about those two hypocritical uncles who have done so many bad things behind my back and with my parents, yet we have looked down upon our loyal uncle coldly and never believed him, I feel extremely guilty. I only hate why I only listened to the one-sided words of those two scheming beasts at that time and didn't want to investigate. I slept very restlessly this night. I dreamt that I went to apologize to my uncle, who no longer believed me and angrily kicked me out. I woke up from bed in a cold sweat, telling myself that my dreams were all opposite. I quickly washed and put on my clothes, and drove the car like the wind towards my uncle's house. At the same time, in my uncle's estate, the butler of the estate was holding a bowl of black traditional Chinese medicine, which made him feel bitter. The butler walked up to the master bedroom and gently knocked on the door. Inside, there came a clearly aged voice, "Come in." The butler pushed open the door and walked to the window, looking at the slightly hunched figure and respectfully saying, "Master, it's time to take medicine." A soft sigh echoed through the room. The butler immediately understood what the master was sighing for and comforted, saying, "Master, you don't have to worry about this all the time. It's not good for your health. Your body has already become so sick. Guihong slowly turned around, and Guihong was Mu Heng's uncle. Guihong turned around and coughed for a while before finally regaining his strength. He said hoarsely, "Wait for him to find out the truth, then go find him. I don't want to provoke him anymore. Then I'll find some time to talk to the young master well. The voice is a bit loud, even the butler can't bear to watch, but you must take some medicine." I've already arrived at the door, listening to the conversation just now clearly. My eyes turned red, and tears rolled in my eyes. Pushing open the open door, I saw my uncle standing by the window, staring at me with a puzzled expression on his face. The butler also turned around when he heard the sound. "Young master, why are you here?" I saw the medicine in the butler's arms at first glance and walked over to grab it. The butler thought I was going to smash it, so he quickly stopped me. Unexpectedly, I came to my uncle's side and asked him to drink it. Seeing the two people in the room dumbfounded, I explained, "Uncle, I'm sorry I misunderstood you. Hurry up and take the medicine." Seeing them still standing there motionless, I urged them to take the medicine again. Uncle picked up the medicine and drank it. After drinking it, Uncle regained his composure and understood what I had just said. I asked incredulously again, my voice trembling slightly. "Xiaomu, what did you say just now? Say it again." I told my uncle the whole story. After hearing this, my uncle was so angry that he patted the table. The bowl of medicine he had just drunk flew up. I quickly helped my uncle to handle it, and we discussed it with him. When his health is good, we will go find trouble with those two uncles together. Tell uncle to take medicine. I went home to rest. These days, I have been with my uncle and urging him to go to the hospital for a check-up. Today, I accompanied my uncle to have a physical examination, and the examination form came out. My uncle's health was normal because he had been thinking about seeking revenge against those two white-eyed wolves. These days, I have been more cooperative with treatment. Uncle's physical problems are not really serious, it's just that he hasn't taken any medication and it worsens. When my uncle's health was almost healed, he asked me what I wanted to do, or rather, revenge. Chapter 7. Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Two white-eyed wolves hid far away because they had done something wrong. My uncle and I drove the car very fast and aggressively towards the white-eyed wolf's house. Arriving at the villa, he broke in despite the obstruction of the guard. Upon entering the hall, I saw my second uncle sneer and say, "That little nephew and fourth sister are really foolish, it's just a pity. Those two idiots even left his foolish son an inheritance, which made us have to work hard to get it back." My third uncle's son smiled and agreed, "Yes, it's all because my fourth brother's wife always thinks for her useless son. Fourth brother really listens to his wife in everything, he's such a coward." Back then, when the stock market plummeted and no one came out to take over, the old man had no choice but to bring back an illegitimate child from outside to take over and return home. After my father was brought back, he immediately took over the company, not only managing it in an orderly manner, but also taking it to the next level. It has great prestige in the South China Sea. Unfortunately, my father trusted the people around him too easily, believing in these beasts with human faces and animal hearts who returned home, causing a tragic death in the hands of so-called family members many years later. Upon hearing them insult my parents like this, my forehead was swollen with veins and I wished I could kill those animals now. I returned home feeling down and down. No one came forward, but now I have developed under the management of my parents when I return home. Coming forward again to accuse my parents of stealing their things, my face is thicker than a city wall. They were still laughing heartily when suddenly they heard a loud bang. Just as he was about to reprimand, he said, "When did you behave so badly?" Suddenly, he saw me and my uncle laughing so insidiously just now, and now they are laughing so heartily. Quickly shifting the topic. "Big brother, little nephew, why are you here? I'm afraid we might hear what they said. The two families on the sofa didn't look good either, so they stared straight at us, wanting to know if we had heard their words. Seeing that we didn't have much reaction, our faces changed and we just had a guilty expression. Now we have become happy and smiling. Little nephew, what's wrong? Did your uncle do something outrageous again? Asked the third uncle. Without saying a word, I waved to the group of bodyguards behind me to signal them to arrest these two families. Then he said to the animals in a superior tone, I will send you to prison, but before that, I will pick out your bones and string them together to make string puppets. If you sell them abroad, maybe you can still get a good price. Don't worry. We won't let you die, we'll hang your lives and make you feel happy. We'll send you to prison when we've had enough fun. They were sweating profusely upon hearing these words, and their second uncle trembled and said, How could you treat your elders like this? Aren't you afraid of thunder and lightning? You are so malicious that you are disrespectful to your elders. If we treat you so well, even if you don't repay us, you will still kill us. The beast even agreed. I was angry and laughed, but I didn't expect to die and still have a hard mouth. I spoke coldly, Elders. Do you deserve it? It's like thunder and lightning strike from heaven. It's malicious. Why don't you think about what you've done yourself? In return, my parents were so kind to you. Is killing them your reward? Later on, my voice had become hysterical. They are still unwilling. The third uncle first reacted and immediately trembled as he remembered that they still had power. He took out his phone and made a phone call. But even though his phone kept reminding him that it was turned off, he persisted and tried again and again. I stood there quietly watching as their repeated disappointment gradually turned into despair. With a soft sneer, the third uncle looked up in embarrassment and said, What's so funny? What's so funny? You wouldn't think that I've torn apart my face and won't even destroy your power. It's so naive. Chapter 8. Cooperation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After my parents passed away, I inherited the company and became the largest shareholder. Recently, I am accepting investment from the Lin family. After my parents died, I became decadent and the company declined over the years. After learning the truth, I am determined to take care of the company. I accepted the investment from the Lin family early on. In the morning, I arrived at the villa of the Lin family. In the living room, there was a friendly old man sitting on the grand tutor's chair, and next to him was a beautiful girl who was helping the old man massage. Grandpa, I'm about to graduate. Can you arrange a job for me? Okay, the old man will arrange it for you. The old man readily agreed. Sweet. Can you supervise a project in the company recently? Lin said slowly. Okay, as long as it's arranged by Grandpa, it's all right, Siwei replied happily. Mr. Lin, the young master who has returned home has arrived and said he wants to visit you, a security guard hastily reported. Let him in. Lin thought for a moment the reason why we are working together this time is because the kid who came home has shown an excellent side, which may be a malleable talent. I walked into the living room with tea brought from France in my hand. Sir, please. I walked into the living room and Lin Lao and I were quite familiar with each other. I had worked with the Lin family before when my parents were still around, and after a while, Lin Lao and I were also quite familiar with each other. Xiaomu, you're finally willing to come and see me, Lin said jokingly. You know, I've been quite busy lately, shouldn't I come and see you? Oh, you'll still buy things for me, let me see what you've bought, Lin exclaimed in surprise. I bought you a dehongpo, and I know you like it specially bought for you. Come and try the taste, she said, brewing tea for herself. I was brewing tea while telling Mr. Lin about the trivial matters of these days, and my gaze glanced at Sui behind Mr. Lin. After recalling for a while, I searched for this person from my memory. She was Lin Lao's granddaughter and also my own junior sister. I had met him or her at school, but I was not familiar with him. After casually saying hello, we started talking to Mr. Lin again, talking in a roundabout manner for a long time, and finally got to business. Mr. Lin, we are fully prepared for the project we have been discussing recently. As long as you invest, I can guarantee that you will not lose money, I assure you confidently. I have seen your plan and it is very idealistic. If there are no other issues, you can bring it to me for signing, Lin Laolu said with relief. Okay, I'll send someone to bring the contract tomorrow. Thank you for Mr. Lin's support, we'll work hard. I curled my lips slightly. Lin suddenly remembered that he had promised his granddaughter to oversee a project, and by the way, he mentioned, by the way, Xiaomu, Siwei is about to graduate. I plan to let her oversee this project. You need to take care of her and not let anyone bully her. Turning to Sui, he said, do you know what? If someone's picking on you, ask him for help. Sui nodded silently. After having lunch at the Lin family, I have to go back. Under the advice of Mr. Lin, I left this villa. The hot afternoon sun shone on the ground, and the ground was filled with hot air. I sat in the car, driving at a fast speed on the road. The scene outside the window quickly reversed, just like life. As I passed by a field, a screen caught my attention and I asked the driver to stop. I saw a handsome young man being pushed to the ground, with blood continuously flowing from his palms. Those people pushed the boy down and left. I got off the car and asked, are you okay? What happened? I took the boy back to the apartment and helped him bandage his wound. After inquiry, it was found that the young man's name was Song Jian. After being admitted to college, he gave up because his family had no money. Looking for jobs everywhere, but no one wants someone who hasn't even attended college to hold a position. Come here to see if there is any farm work that can be done, but he is despised for lacking strength and having more strength than him. He was brushed off, and he was unwilling to go find that family again, only to be kicked out and even pushed. I see him so pitiful, I plan to hand over a small project to him. I informed him, Brother Song, our company has a small project. Would you be willing to give it a try? If this project is done well, I will arrange a few more projects for you, with a monthly salary of 100,000 yuan and free meals and sleep. Song Jian nodded repeatedly and excitedly said, you are just my benefactor. I really don't know how to thank you. A month later, the revenue of the project that Song Jian was responsible for was more than twice as expected. It turned out that it was because Song Jian made improvements to the planning plan after taking charge, which led to a doubling of the revenue. I didn't expect to encounter talent. I entrusted some more important projects to him with greater confidence. Afterwards, he also gained some status in the company, and I am happy for him. Chapter 9. Eradication. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the morning, I arrived at the company to check the progress of my employees. When I got on the elevator, the door was about to close when a foot in leather shoes blocked it. The door reopened and a bald man with a fat head and big ears stood at the elevator entrance. The man followed a group of delinquent youths behind him, looking arrogantly at the employees on the elevator. After a while, the bald man leading the way coughed and ordered, drive them down for me. The group of people behind rushed forward, pushing and kicking, and some even walked out of the elevator on their own, afraid of being affected. It wasn't until I was the only one left in the elevator, a man with red hair on his head and a scar almost 5 centimeters long on his face. He walked unsteadily to me, stopped, put his hands in his pockets, and tilted his head to look at me, saying, "Brother, do you want to get out of here?" Another man with sharp-tongued monkey cheeks also walked over and agreed, "Yes, get out of here. He looks very lewd and disgusting." I stood there playing with my phone, letting them talk to themselves. The person with sharp tongues and monkey cheeks felt embarrassed when no one answered his words, so he dug his toes on the ground. For a long time, I still didn't speak. My face turned red with frustration, and I punched me with a fist that stopped only a millimeter away from my face. At the moment the person punched, I lifted my leg and kicked him in the abdomen. His body shook violently, then he covered his abdomen and slowly crouched down, emitting bursts of screams. The red-haired mouth next to it presents a standard oval shape. The fat-headed and big-eared man came over and shouted, "What's going on?" shouting loudly. Yu Guang glanced at me and said, "And you, why haven't you gone out yet?" Red Hair heard the sound and quickly ran over and said, "Brother Su, that guy beat third brother and still refuses to come out. Very arrogant, I didn't take you seriously, Brother Su." Upon hearing this, Su Gu walked slowly towards us, trembling with fat. I stood there, continuing to play with my phone, ignoring the earthquake-like sound of walking. Until the sound slowly stopped in front of me, I saw that lump of fat stretching out a paw and grabbing at me. I dodged to the side, avoided the hand, and grabbed the red hair with my back hand to collide with my paw. Brother Su's eyes were blocked by flesh, and it was impossible to retract his claws when he saw clearly. When Red Hair realized it, he had already received a big shake from his Su brother, with a bright red slap mark on his face and a bewildered expression. When everyone was stunned, I continued to play with my phone. Red Hair immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, mixed with several teeth. He opened his mouth to speak, but found that one of his two front teeth was missing. He quickly closed his mouth. That punch, but it pressed almost 200 pounds of body up, and not being knocked unconscious is considered lucky. Su Gu was stunned for a while, then looked at Red Hair lying on the ground and called out to those behind him, "Get him up for me." They rushed towards me one after another, trying to press me to the ground. The first one came up with a flurry of punches, but I knocked him down with one punch. When we saw him knocked down by me, we went up together and wanted to have a group fight. We all fell down one by one, leaving only Su, who was hiding at the end. He was trembling and huddled in the corner of the wall, muttering, "Don't hit me, I was wrong." I didn't pay much attention to him and called my secretary over. My secretary is a middle-aged man named Yuhan, with excellent work ability and a lifeless expression all day. I asked him to investigate how Su and his group got into the company, and after a few minutes, he found out. Su Gu is the godson of his second uncle. 2 months ago, he was arranged to work as a petty manager waiting to die. He didn't do anything and even brought a group of thugs to show off his power. A month ago, he was outside collecting protection fees with this group of thugs in the company. Some employees were unwilling to pay and were beaten up by them, making their faces and noses blue. Afterwards, they began to find senior management and wanted to dismiss the group of thugs, but in the end, they only received some severance pay and were threatened. They saw that the senior management didn't want to deal with them, so in the future, they can only stay away from them and try to avoid collisions with them in the company. I immediately asked my secretary to call both uncles from the company to my office. Subsequently, a group of people came into my office one after another who only received salaries and didn't do anything. The secretary prepared the resignation procedures for them one by one. "President Mu, it's ready," the secretary said. They were impatient after having let them stand here for so long. Some played games, some played TikTok, and some were talking to their partners, without any hesitation, with the biggest voice. The secretary sent them a copy of the resignation procedures, and after reading the resignation procedures, they shouted that they would not leave. They certainly don't want to resign. The monthly salary for this job is very high, mainly because they don't need to do anything and can have a stable income. It's strange to be able to resign. I calmly placed the pre-prepared video on the big screen, and they looked at the big screen. Startled by the scene above, their backer was tormented beyond recognition. Some were so scared that they wet their pants and wanted to run out, but their secretary stopped them and said, "I signed." He quickly picked up the resignation procedures, signed his name on it, and ran out of the office in a hurry. The other few people also signed one after another. There was only one left, not afraid of death. This person had long black hair, and his eyes exuded an aura of only killing people. He was not afraid when he saw the video, but rather excited. He watched the content of the video countless times, and finally laughed. He laughed like a lunatic, called the security guard in, forced him to sign the resignation procedures, and then kicked him out. Instruct the secretary to investigate the mental illness just now. After playing around on the computer for a while, the secretary found the person's file. It is written above that when he was 5 years old, his father was a gambler, owed money, had no money to repay, and committed suicide in front of their mother and son. From then on, his mother suffered from depression and committed suicide. His psychology gradually became distorted, and at the age of 18, he killed a college student. He was sentenced to 10 years and suffered torture in prison. After coming out, he was taken in by his second uncle and secretly committed some illegal acts. Send someone to collect the criminal evidence of those who have just been fired and report to the police station. After completing the resignation procedures, dozens of employees were randomly checked for their work abilities in the company, and several employees with weak work abilities were dismissed. Chapter 10. Difficulties. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I walked around the company a few more times, listening to my secretary reporting on this month's income situation. As I was walking, suddenly someone bumped into me. That person was Song Jian, who had already been thriving in the company. He is currently preparing for a very important project and is extremely busy. During the conversation, I learned that Song Jian was responsible for the project and encountered a tricky problem, which was that the investor was unwilling to sign the contract. Song Jian was about to rush to negotiate the contract with the other party, and I haven't had much to do in the past few days. So he said, "Let me go together and see if we can solve this problem." After Song Jian sorted out the contract, he sat in the car and arrived at the private room of the bar where we were discussing cooperation. The agreed time had already arrived, but no one was even seen in the private room. Time passed by minute by second, and still no one from the other party came. Song Jian looked at his watch in a moment, and the time arrived in the afternoon. It was already time for dinner, and finally, footsteps could be heard outside the door. A middle-aged man with frameless glasses must be the one who never signed the contract, Chi Fan, followed by a calm secretary. Chi Fan had a fake smile on his face and said innocently, "Sorry, I almost forgot about this. After waiting for so long, I had already sent someone to check which private room Chi was in." I replied, "Boss Chi, you had a great time playing in the neighboring private room." Chi Fan was taken aback for a moment. Although the previous people knew he was playing in another private room, they didn't speak up because they had some requests for him. However, the young man in front of him didn't hesitate at all and spoke up directly. He smiled and greeted the waiter, "Order." He took his order on his own, as if there was no one else in the private room except him. Seeing this, I also called the waiter, ordered a few dishes, handed the menu to Song Jian, and asked him to order a few dishes too. Song Jian saw that I didn't pay attention to Chi Fan, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, afraid that this business would go wrong. Chi Fan saw that I was not at a loss for this, so he couldn't help but give me a few admiring glances. For now, I treat people other than Song Jian as transparent people and treat them with their own way. I tasted them elegantly. Eating delicious food and slowly finishing lunch, he picked up a tissue and wiped the corners of his mouth carefully. Chi Fan across from him finally couldn't sit still and asked, "Sir, may I ask who you are?" After seeing Chi Fan speak, I politely replied, "I am the major shareholder of Gui Group, Gui Muheng." It turned out to be Boss Mu, no wonder his temperament is so extraordinary. Chi Fan said with a strange tone of yin and yang. I laughed and said, "I dare not take it for granted, I dare not take it for granted. It's still you who made people wait for so long." Chi Fan's face changed and he clearly felt a bit embarrassed. Chi Fan is not a troublemaker, but he has always felt that people who cater to him are too foolish and unwilling to cooperate with others. The Chi family is able to operate so well thanks to Chi Fan's big brother, Chi Jijiao. Qi Jijiao is in charge of the entire Qi family group, which is one of the 3 major families in the South China Sea. Qi Fan smiled and led the conversation to the contract, indicating that he had acknowledged the project. Mr. Mu, the plan proposed by the company has a strong sense of design, and our company is willing to invest in this plan. Upon hearing these words, Song Jian's originally dull eyes suddenly became clear. He quickly handed the prepared contract to Mr. Qi and said, "Mr. Qi, this is the contract drafted by our company. If there are no objections, let's sign the contract." Qi Fan carefully looked at the contract and requested an additional condition. Unexpectedly, the condition was that if there was a good plan next time, he must cooperate with their Qi group. Song Jian thought it was an excessive condition, and his face immediately became serious. When Qi Fan proposed this condition, Song Jian instantly became happy and smiling. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Okay, okay." Both parties have signed the contract, and Qi Fan stood up first and reached out his hand, saying, "Mr. Mu, have a pleasant cooperation." I also stood up with a smile and shook hands with Qi Fan. We had a pleasant cooperation. After Qi Fan left, Song Jian excitedly asked, "Mr. Mu, how did you persuade Qi to sign the contract?" I didn't understand. I smiled slightly at Song Jian and said, "Think for yourself. It's not that I didn't tell him, but that I don't know. I can't even tell him." After speaking, walk towards the door.